Stepbrother took my wife and destroyed the connection I had with my kid. This asshole really betrayed me. Now I am trying to rebuild my life again, but how am I able to forget this? This is the most fucked up thing. I'm John Reynolds, 45 years old, a high school teacher with a comfortable life and a love for my family. I had built a life with Sarah, my college sweetheart, over the last 2 decades, and our son, Ethan, was a spirited 16-year-old navigating the treacherous waters of adolescence. I envisioned a future filled with family dinners, weekend soccer games, and lazy Sundays. It was a dream I held dear, a life I thought I could rely on. But that dream shattered one fateful evening when I returned home early from a parent-teacher conference, eager to surprise Sarah with her favorite takeout. The door creaked open, and I was greeted by an unbearable sight: my stepbrother, Mark, leaning against the kitchen counter, whispering sweet nothings into Sarah's ear. Mark, 42 and always the charmer, was the last person I expected to betray me. Time seemed to stand still as disbelief coursed through me. My heart raced, and all I could feel was the weight of betrayal. What the hell is going on? My voice trembled, cracking under the pressure of disbelief and hurt. I could see the panic in Sarah's eyes and the way Mark's smug grin faltered, his confidence crumbling as he realized he'd been caught. I can explain, John, Sarah stammered, but there was nothing left to explain. The silence that followed was deafening, a chasm that opened between us, one I could never hope to cross. Chapter 2, The Turning Point. The fallout was brutal. The weeks that followed felt like an unending storm, filled with rage and heartbreak. Friends took sides, whispers spread like wildfire through our small town. I felt isolated, a man adrift in a sea of betrayal. Each day at work became a reminder of my broken life, and I sought solace in dark bars, drowning my sorrows in whiskey. The familiar burn in my throat became my only comfort as I attempted to escape the reality of my shattered marriage. At home, the laughter of Sarah and Mark echoed like a cruel joke, each chuckle a reminder of what I had lost. I could hardly look my colleagues in the eye, they were all too aware of my shame. My heart ached every time I saw them exchange glances filled with pity, and I felt the weight of their whispers surround me like a thick fog. But instead of succumbing to despair, I felt a fire ignite within me, a burning desire for revenge. I had always been the calm one, the one who avoided conflict, but this was different. This was personal. I began crafting a plan, focusing on how to bring them down, to watch their happiness crumble like my own. Chapter 3, Twists and Turns. I started small, planting an anonymous tip about Mark's hidden gambling debts at Sarah's workplace. I knew it would sow discord between them, and I relished the thought of watching their world implode from a distance. The thrill of revenge pulsed through my veins, intoxicating me with the promise of justice. As I sat in a dark corner of a bar, nursing my drink, I imagined the chaos that would unfold. I pictured Sarah's face when she confronted Mark, her eyes wide with disbelief, the betrayal gnawing at her insides just as it had done to mine. I felt a sick satisfaction at the thought. The chaos unfolded beautifully. Sarah confronted Mark, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" she demanded, her tone laced with anger. I could almost hear the tension in the air, thick enough to cut. Mark, caught off guard, tried to maintain his bravado, but I could see the cracks forming. In a moment of vulnerability, he blurted out, "I didn't leave John for you." I was pushed. "You manipulated us both." My heart raced at his confession. Had Sarah been playing both of us all along? I felt the walls closing in as I delved deeper into the truth, uncovering Sarah's hidden motives, her fear of being alone and a desperate need for validation that had driven her into Mark's arms. Chapter 4, The Ultimate Showdown. With the pieces falling into place, I decided it was time for a confrontation. I couldn't just sit back and watch anymore, I needed to confront them both. I showed up unannounced at their home one evening, a tempest of emotions swirling inside me. When Sarah opened the door, her surprise turned to defiance, as if she expected me to back down. "What do you want, John?" she asked, arms crossed, her expression a mask of nonchalance. "This ends now," I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence. "Did you think I wouldn't find out you've been playing both of us?" The tension hung thick in the air, and buried truths exploded into the open. I could see the shock in Sarah's eyes as I accused her of manipulation. I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about reclaiming my dignity. "John," she began, but I cut her off. "Don't act innocent. You orchestrated this whole mess." As Mark loomed in the shadows, I could feel the confrontation reaching its boiling point. Accusations flew, emotions surged, and the atmosphere crackled with the weight of our shared history. Chapter 5, The Unraveling. In the midst of the chaos, something shifted. Sarah admitted she felt suffocated in our marriage, her dreams stifled. "I never wanted to hurt you, John," she said, her voice breaking. "I just felt trapped." Mark, finally stripped of bravado, revealed his own struggles with addiction issues that had haunted him long before Sarah entered the picture. I was lost, he confessed, his voice heavy with regret. I thought I was making the right choice. The emotional fallout left us all exposed, vulnerable. I realized then that we were all victims of our choices. My thirst for revenge transformed into something unexpected, a desire to understand rather than destroy. Maybe we could break free from the cycles that had trapped us. Chapter 6, A Radical Proposal. In a moment of clarity, I proposed an unconventional idea. What if we work together? We all need to confront our demons, and maybe we can help each other heal. The suggestion hung in the air, shocking all three of us. Sarah's eyes widened, and Mark looked bewildered. Yet something resonated in my voice, a glimmer of hope amid the wreckage. Sarah glanced at Mark, and for a moment, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. You really think we can do that? She asked, her voice hesitant. Why not? I replied. We've all hurt each other, but we've also shared so much. Let us face this together. After a tense silence, they agreed to attend therapy sessions together, grappling with our inner turmoil as a united front. It felt absurd, yet liberating, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Chapter 7, Transformation. As the months passed, we found ourselves navigating uncharted waters. The therapy sessions forced us to confront uncomfortable truths. I learned about my own insecurities and how I had stifled Sarah's ambitions without realizing it. I had become so focused on providing that I had neglected her needs, her dreams. Sarah, in turn, faced her fear of commitment and her desperate need for validation. I was scared, John, she admitted one evening, tears streaming down her face. I thought I needed someone else to feel whole. Mark took the bold step of facing his addiction head-on. He attended support groups, opening up about his past, allowing the walls he had built to crumble. The emotional intensity of our journey created an unlikely bond between us, transforming betrayal into mutual support. I never expected to find solace in this chaotic mess. As we peeled back the layers of hurt, I felt a connection with them that I hadn't anticipated. We shared our stories, our fears, and the weight of our past choices. Together, we began to heal. Chapter 8, Rebirth from Ashes. One sunny afternoon, we stood together at a local park, a place that had once been a family favorite. As we watched the children play, laughter echoing around us, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had forged an unlikely alliance, one built on honesty and empathy rather than resentment. I never thought we'd end up here, I said, breaking the silence. But I'm grateful for this journey. It's taught me so much. Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I thought I was looking for love, but I was really searching for myself. I lost sight of who I was. Mark chimed in, his voice steadier than before. I've learned that I need to face my demons alone. I can't rely on anyone else to fill that void. As we sat there, the sun shining down on us, I realized that my plan for revenge had transformed into something far greater. We were no longer bound by betrayal, instead, we had woven a narrative of healing and redemption. Chapter 9, Unexpected Challenges. However, our journey wasn't without challenges. As we continued to grow, there were moments of doubt and temptation. I found myself struggling with resentment. Seeing Sarah and Mark together, even as friends, stirred up old wounds. One evening, I overheard them laughing while I was in the next room. Jealousy washed over me like a tidal wave, threatening to pull me under. I felt my heart racing, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. I stood frozen, grappling with the weight of my emotions. Hadn't we come so far yet? Here I was, ready to let old wounds open up again, just when I thought I had begun to heal. That night, I confronted them. What's so funny? I snapped, stepping into the living room where they were sitting together on the couch, their laughter dying in an instant. John, we were just Sarah began, but I interrupted her. I don't want to hear it. You two have a real laugh together while I'm trying to pick up the pieces of my life. It's infuriating. My voice cracked as I spoke, revealing the raw pain beneath my anger. Mark shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flickering between us. We're not trying to hurt you, John. We're just what? I shouted. Trying to forget about me, to pretend like everything is okay. The tension in the room thickened, suffocating. I could see the hurt in Sarah's eyes, but it only fueled my anger. It felt unfair that they could find joy in this situation while I was drowning in my own turmoil. Maybe I shouldn't have come here, I muttered, turning to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped me. John, wait. We're in this together. You can't just walk away every time things get tough. She pleaded, her voice trembling. I turned back, anger morphing into sorrow. You're right. I can't just walk away. But it's hard to look at you both and not feel betrayed. Chapter 10, Facing the Past. That confrontation marked a turning point in our journey. The emotional scars didn't disappear overnight. We needed to face the past more deeply, which meant delving into the roots of our pain. During our next therapy session, we all sat in a circle, the air heavy with unspoken words. Our therapist encouraged us to share our feelings, to be raw and honest. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. I don't just feel betrayed by you two, I began, my voice shaking. I feel betrayed by myself. I thought I could handle everything, that I was strong enough to overcome this. But every time I see you together, I feel like a failure. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she listened. John, I never wanted to make you feel that way. I didn't realize how my actions would affect you. I thought I was escaping, but I only created more pain. Mark chimed in, his voice low. I thought I was doing something right. But I was just running away from my own demons, dragging you both into the chaos. As we spoke, something shifted. We began to see the humanity in one another, the flaws that made us all imperfect. It was a painful process, but it felt cathartic, as if we were peeling back layers of hurt to reveal something more authentic beneath. Chapter 11, The Road to Forgiveness. Weeks turned into months, and we continued to work through our feelings. I began to understand that forgiveness wasn't just about absolving them of their sins, it was also about releasing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. One evening, after a particularly grueling therapy session, I found myself sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. Sarah joined me, her presence comforting. You know, she said softly, I've never seen you like this before. You're letting yourself feel. It's terrifying, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought if I kept my feelings buried, I'd be okay. But now I realize that was a lie. She nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. It's hard to confront the truth. But I think we're finally making progress. I'm learning to be honest with myself and with you. We talked for hours, sharing our hopes and fears. I felt a shift between us, a newfound understanding that began to replace the bitterness. It was a fragile connection, but it was there. Chapter 12, New Beginnings. As spring approached, our therapy sessions shifted focus. We began to discuss our futures, what we wanted, where we saw ourselves heading. Mark expressed a desire to confront his addiction seriously, to become someone who could be proud of himself. I don't want to just float through life anymore, he said, determination igniting his words. I want to be someone Ethan can look up to. Sarah spoke about her ambitions, her dreams that had long been suppressed. I want to go back to school, to find out who I am outside of this mess, she said. I realized I needed to embrace my own path as well. I began to explore hobbies I had abandoned, writing, photography, and even a few long-forgotten passions. The creative outlet helped me process my emotions in a way I had never experienced before. As we supported one another in our journeys, I felt the bonds between us grow stronger. We weren't just a tangled web of betrayal anymore, we were a support system, each of us working to become better versions of ourselves. Chapter 13, The Unexpected Reunion. One evening, a few months later, I received a call from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years, Daniel, my college roommate. We had lost touch after I got married, but he wanted to catch up. When we met at a local coffee shop, the familiar warmth of friendship enveloped me. Man, it's been too long, he said, clapping me on the back. I heard about everything that went down. I'm really sorry. Thanks, I replied, feeling the weight of my situation lift just a little. It's been a hell of a ride. As we reminisced about our college days, I felt a sense of normalcy return. Daniel shared stories about his life, his career, and the family he was starting. I envied the ease with which he navigated life's ups and downs, but I also felt a sense of pride in my own resilience. You know, he said, his voice thoughtful, sometimes it takes a storm to make us appreciate the sunshine. You're doing the hard work now, and it'll pay off. His words struck a chord deep within me. I was finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Chapter 14, The Invitation. As summer approached, Sarah suggested a family gathering, a barbecue to celebrate our progress. I hesitated at first, the idea of sharing space with Mark making my stomach twist. But deep down, I knew it was a step toward healing. Let us invite Ethan's friends too, Sarah said, her enthusiasm infectious. It'll be fun, a chance for all of us to just relax. On the day of the barbecue, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I watched as Sarah and Mark worked together, flipping burgers and setting up the backyard. It was surreal, seeing them interact so easily after everything that had happened. Ethan and his friends ran around, laughter filling the air, and for a moment, it felt like a family again. I realized that maybe this was what moving forward looked like, creating new memories and allowing laughter to drown out the echoes of past pain. Chapter 15, The Moment of Truth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the backyard, I found myself standing apart from the crowd, lost in thought. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Mark. Can we talk, he asked, his voice sincere. I nodded, and we moved to the edge of the yard, away from the noise. I know things have been complicated between us, he began. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. I never intended to hurt you or your family. I took a deep breath, weighing my response. It's taken a long time to come to terms with everything. I was angry for so long. I get that, he said, looking down. I've been working on myself, trying to be better. I hope you can see that. I hesitated, feeling the weight of his words. I've realized that forgiveness doesn't come easily, but I'm trying. It's not just about you, it's about me letting go of the anger. Mark nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I appreciate that. I hope we can find a way to coexist without resentment. Me too, I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a step forward. Chapter 16, Building Bridges. The months rolled on, and our new dynamic felt almost comfortable. We had learned to navigate our complex relationship, building bridges rather than walls. Therapy continued to help us, encouraging open communication and mutual support. One evening, we gathered for another family dinner, the air filled with the delicious aroma of homemade pasta. As we sat around the table, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We were no longer just survivors of betrayal, we were a family finding a way to redefine ourselves. I have an idea, Sarah said, her eyes sparkling. What if we take a family trip together, just the three of us, maybe to the beach? I exchanged glances with Mark, and for the first time, the thought didn't terrify me. That could be nice, I replied, surprising myself with my enthusiasm. As we planned the trip, I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. We were learning to live again, to embrace life with all its complexities. Chapter 17, The Journey to the Shore. The day of our trip to the beach arrived with the sun shining bright, casting a golden hue over everything. Sarah, Mark, and I packed the car with excitement and a hint of nervousness. Ethan was in the back seat, earbuds in, blissfully unaware of the emotional complexities that had brought us here. As we drove, the conversations flowed more easily than they had in months. We joked about road trip snacks, reminisced about past vacations, and shared our favorite beach memories. The tension that once hung over us felt lighter, almost evaporating as we moved through familiar landscapes, the ocean scent filling the air as we approached our destination. When we arrived, the sight of the waves crashing against the shore filled me with a sense of nostalgia. I watched as Ethan sprinted toward the water, laughing, his joy infectious. Sarah and Mark followed, and I felt a warmth spread in my chest as I saw them playfully splash water at each other. This was a moment I never thought I'd witness again, a moment of genuine happiness. Chapter 18, Building New Memories. The days spent at the beach felt liberating. We built sandcastles, played beach volleyball, and even took turns trying to surf, failing spectacularly but laughing all the while. I watched as Sarah and Mark supported each other, helping each other up after a particularly nasty wipeout. There was a sense of camaraderie, an unspoken agreement that we were all in this together. One evening, we gathered around a bonfire, the flames dancing against the twilight sky. Ethan roasted marshmallows, and we shared stories, each tale deepening our connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a wave of gratitude for this new chapter in our lives. Can you believe how far we've come? I asked, gazing at the flickering flames. Mark nodded, his expression contemplative. I never thought we'd be able to enjoy time like this again. It feels freeing. Sarah smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. We've had our battles, but maybe those battles helped us find ourselves. In that moment, I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about absolving one another of our past mistakes. It was about growth, finding strength in vulnerability and learning to embrace the complexity of our relationships. Chapter 19, The Unraveling of Old Fears. However, as we settled into our newfound harmony, old fears began to creep back in. One night, I lay awake, listening to the waves crash against the shore, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this peace might be temporary. The past loomed over me like a specter, whispering doubts into my mind. The next day, as the sun rose, I decided to confront those fears. I found Mark sitting alone on the beach, watching the waves. Can we talk? I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. Sure, he replied, looking up at me. What's on your mind? I just wanted to say. I'm scared. Scared that this all could fall apart again. That we could end up back where we started. Mark nodded, understanding in his eyes. I felt that way too. But I think we're stronger now. We know what's at stake. We've faced our demons. But what if it's not enough? I pressed, feeling the weight of my vulnerability. Mark looked thoughtful for a moment. Then we face it together. We've built something real here. It's not perfect, but it's ours. His words struck a chord within me, resonating deeply. Maybe the key to moving forward wasn't just about holding onto this piece but also about being willing to confront the uncertainties together. Chapter 20, The Choice of Forgiveness. As the trip drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on our journey. On the last night, we gathered once more around the bonfire. The stars twinkled above us, a backdrop to our collective hope for the future. Before we head back, I want to say something, Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly. This trip has been incredible for me. I've realized how much I've taken for granted, especially the connections I have with both of you. I know I hurt you, John, and Mark, but I want us to keep moving forward. I looked at her, my heart swelling with a mix of emotion. I appreciate that, Sarah. It's been a long road, but I'm willing to keep walking it if you are. Mark nodded, his expression earnest. We all have a choice. We can choose to let the past define us, or we can choose to build something new. I choose the latter. Epilogue, the road ahead. As we packed up the car and drove away from the beach, I felt a profound sense of closure mixed with optimism. The journey had changed us all, and while the past would always be a part of our story, it no longer held us hostage. Back in town, we continued our therapy sessions, not just as a means of healing, but as a commitment to each other. We focused on growth, building a healthier relationship that would carry us into the future. Months later, I stood in the living room, surrounded by the warmth of my family. Ethan's friends were over, laughter echoing throughout the house. I caught a glimpse of Sarah and Mark sharing a joke in the kitchen, and instead of resentment, I felt pride. We had transformed the ashes of betrayal into something beautiful. As I watched them interact, I understood that forgiveness was not a destination but a journey, one that we would navigate together, step by step. The past may have shaped us, but it would not define us. In that moment, I felt hope blossom within me. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next together. The journey of healing was just beginning, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them as a family, resilient and united. The end, or perhaps, just the beginning of a new chapter.